Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today we're here to talk about the Bengals' internal coaching candidates. So obviously Marvin Lewis is on his way out, so I'm going to come and drop this video, and then we'll talk about external. But let's talk about the internal candidates. So I've got a list here of some internal candidates who I think could possibly be considered for the opening that should come at the end of the season for the head coaching position. First off, Paul Guenther. He's been here 12 years as a Bengal coach ever since 2005. He's mostly been the linebackers coach and the defensive coordinator. He was considered to be a potential head coach on several other places, Philadelphia being one of them. He was also rumored and was also offered a job by former offensive coordinator Jay Gruden, which could still happen after the end of this year, being that his contract is up. But he was almost poached by Jay Gruden, and he was almost poached by Mike Zimmer, and Mike Brown actually sat him in his office and said, "You're staying, you're not leaving." He's also blocked his ability to interview for other jobs as well, so it wouldn't surprise me if he would be one of the internal candidates. When the news broke, it seemed like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter caught wind of some internal noise. And one of the interesting candidates that they kind of released out there was special teams coach Darren Simmons. Now that's very interesting because earlier this year, a lot of our fans probably remember when Marvin Lewis had a health issue. Darren Simmons actually stepped in as the acting head coach for that practice. So that's interesting. He's got 14 years experience with the Bengals. So 15 years, excuse me, because he's been here ever since Marvin in 2003. And he's well liked by the team. He's well liked by the team in the front office. So that keeps him in there. I'm not sure how I would feel about that signing as in terms of a head coach because, but I'll get into more of it at the end. Let me get through these guys. So the next guy I have on my list is James Urban. He's been an NFL coach for 13 years. For 6 years, he was with the Eagles. He was an offensive coordinator, I believe, a quality control coach, and also a quarterbacks coach. And for the Bengals, he's actually been our wide receiver coach. He was actually voted coach of the year last season. He's well liked by the organization. And Hugh Jackson, when he left to take the position with the Browns, he actually recommended that Urban be promoted as our offensive coordinator, but he was passed over twice. He was passed over this year with Bill Lazor. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I think that the fact that he's an offensive-minded coach, he could end up also being a candidate. Next is a candidate most of you guys are probably going to hate, myself included, but I still think, just thinking with how the Bengals operate, that he could potentially be a guy that will be a candidate for this, and that's Paul Alexander, the longest tenured Bengals coach. Believe it or not, the dude has been here longer than Marvin Lewis. For 24 seasons, Paul Alexander has been with the Bengals. And since 2003 when Marvin came in, apparently he's been an assistant head coach as well as obviously the offensive line coach. So he could be here after Marvin. That could possibly make sense with how the Bengals do things. But those right there are the candidates. Looking at them, Paul Guenther, I think I'm kind of lukewarm on. The zone defense that he ran this year was just kind of mind-boggling in the past couple of years. I'm not sure how he would do as a head coach. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one last guy. Jim Haslett. Jim Haslett is another guy that's a sleeper. He's currently our linebacker coach. He has a head coaching record. His record as a head coach because he coached for not only the Saints but also the Rams, and he was 47-61. He hasn't been a head coach since 2008, but he's the only coach that's on the roster right now under Marvin Lewis that actually has had some head coaching experience. He also won Coach of the Year in 2000. And he has 21 years of NFL experience. So, wrapping things up, going back to Guenther, I don't think Guenther would be the best move as far as being a head coach, because I think like we really need a guy that's going to come in and be an offensive-minded coach, and Gunther is defensive-minded, and I'm not really sure exactly what his staff would consist of. I don't know if he would keep the same guys, but I think our margin for success wouldn't really yield too much positivity under Paul Gunther. Darren Simmons, I think that that's a typical Mike Brown move, almost kind of like the Zampese move. To make a special teams coordinator the head coach, no knock against special teams coordinators, but when does that really happen? I'm not sure what we would really get with Darren Simmons. I don't know where our special teams is always very good. He does a great job on special teams. He has a great relationship with those players, but I'm not sure exactly what he would do in terms of putting his staff together. And, you know, I don't know exactly how important, and some of the things that scare me is the fact that he gave Mike Nugent several chances after he should have been gone. Seems like he's somewhat a loyal guy too, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to put that risk, because I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made, and keeping somebody like Darren Simmons, you could end up having those same guys be there. James Urban, I think this guy honestly will be a good coach, and I would love to see what he would possibly do as a head coach, because he came from Philadelphia, so I think that there are some Andy Reid ties there. And I think that he could, in a sense, put in an offense that could mirror that. But I think that he's a guy that could be potentially good. Our wide receivers haven't done as good this year. I don't think that that's anything due to James Urban, but he would be interesting. I don't think he would be an ideal candidate either. But in comparison to some of the other guys, I think that he would offer a little bit more flavor. Paul Alexander is the worst one on this list, but I think there's a legit possibility, just because Mike Brown has known the guy for 24 years, that he could be the coach. If they were to do that, I think the fans would riot. Jim Haslett. I actually think Jim Haslett is probably the most ideal internal hire that you would want to see going forward. I have some connections with some of the players, and on defense, a lot of the guys actually do like Jim Haslett. It seems like they might possibly, and I'm not trying to start a rumor or anything, but it seems like that some of them may like Haslett a little bit more than Paulie G. But I mean, I'm not sure. That's probably only one person's perspective. But I think Haslett would be a guy that could possibly come back and has a wealth of that experience and connections, and possibly could get this team back on track. With all that being said, hopefully the Bengals don't go internal. They could go internal, and if they do, I think that these are your candidates. But if not, you know, we'll see. But next, I'll be breaking down the external candidates, and that will be a more exciting video for some of our fan base. As usual, you guys jump in the comments. Let me know who you guys think is the best ideal internal candidate out of these ones that I've listed. And if I didn't mention anyone, make sure to leave that in the comments as well. But make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll make sure that I'm hitting you guys with a lot of Bengals content, being that the season is over. But as usual, I'll leave you guys with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.